Western games have always had a special place in the hearts of gamers, offering gritty stories and intense shootouts. If you've ever wanted to step into the boots of a cowboy or gunslinger, this video's for you. Today, we're looking at the best single-player Western games that really capture the essence of the Wild West. So without wasting more time, let's get into the video. Samurai Western is an action game developed by Acquire and published by Atlus in 2005 for the PlayStation 2. It is part of the Way of the Samurai series, but takes a different approach by focusing on fast-paced combat rather than open-world exploration. You play as a deadly samurai named Gojiro Kiryu, who travels to the American frontier searching for his lost brother, Rando. But instead of finding a peaceful reunion, he discovers a land ruled by corrupt gunslingers and ruthless bandits. Armed with only his katana, Gojiro takes on waves of enemies, proving that swords can be just as deadly as guns. The game is a hack-and-slash experience where you cut down enemies with fluid sword strikes, dodge bullets, and unleash powerful combos. Unlike most Western games that rely on shooting mechanics, this one rewards you for precise timing and fast reactions. For a PS2 game, Samurai Western looks decent. The character models and environments may not be the most detailed by today's standards, but the stylish action and smooth animations make up for it. The game's setting is a mix of classic Wild West towns and Japanese samurai influences. While the story isn't overly complex, it keeps you engaged with fun characters and intense battles. The blend of samurai culture and Western landscapes creates a fresh and exciting world that stands out from other Western games. The developer of West of Loathing, Asymmetric's first project was a game called Kingdom of Loathing, which was a browser-based MMORPG. It built up a community of over 1 million players worldwide and has become a cult classic over time. It was therefore really exciting to see what Asymmetric could do next, as both of these games have a very similar style. The story in West of Loathing starts off with you looking to head west. What becomes apparent right away is that you're able to choose your own motivations for doing so. It may be to seek fortune, or it may also be because you're sick of living at home in some tiny place with your folks. Now, I really enjoy games where you can control parts of the dialogue and story to a certain extent. The writing is superb, and the dialogue between characters is just so funny that the game kept me completely glued all the way through. You can choose a cowpuncher, a beanslinger, or a snake oiler. Each has different skills, which you can upgrade much like any good RPG. What's really interesting at the beginning is how dialogue absolutely determines your starting skill. I won't spoil what they are, but suffice it to say, it's clever in how it's determined. Similarly, if you want to play on hard mode, you can find a hat in the game with that option. Developed by Horberg Productions, Gunman Clive 2 is the second installment in the Gunman Clive series. The biggest reason being that it was coming from the then unknown Swedish indie dev team, Horberg Productions, which for the most part is a one-man development team, who previously worked in the glorious and fruitful mobile market. Gunman Clive 2 does not start with a whimper, but rather a bang. It doesn't bog you down with any exposition when it comes to the story or tutorials on how to play it. It plops you right into the heat of things with quick-to-learn controls and mechanics. Gunman Clive 2's expansion and amount of diversity blows the original out of the water, which is something you would hope to come out of a sequel. The level designs are great, with tricky platforming sections sprinkled here and there, and the boss fights are quite glorious, with each one offering some sort of new twist, so they don't feel like you're retreading through the same thing over and over again. Now, just like the first installment, Clive 2 will be over before you know it. They're both approximately the same length, so if you played the original, you will know what to expect from this one. It will only last an hour or less on your first playthrough, which does stink, because the adventure at hand is fun, and you don't really want it to end so fast.
I feel Mammon's presence someplace.
Hard West 2 is a strategy game that takes the classic Western genre and gives it a thrilling twist by combining it with supernatural elements. While this game has number 2 in its name, the first game was developed by another team of developers and had a different gameplay pacing due to its mechanics. So, if you haven't tried it, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable jumping straight into Hard Quest 2. As for the story, our main protagonist is a guy called Gene Carter. With his crew of autos, they decide to rob a train that has the mystical name Ghost Train. Everything was going well until they reached the train engine, where they met the devil itself. Upon fighting with him, the crew finds out that he is invincible. Gene proposed they play a game of poker to leave that place in case of victory. As you can understand, it's hard to beat the devil at poker, so Gene and his crew lost their souls and now have to get them back and get revenge as well. As for visuals and narrative, I feel that the game is performed decently. The visual style is impressive, colors are vibrant, and the fights feel fresh and bright. The world map where we travel and mostly have dialogues, trading, and side quests is pretty mediocre. But that is not that important since most of our time will be spent engaged in fights. So, if you're up for a strategy game that blends the Wild West with the supernatural, Hard West 2 might just be the thrilling adventure you're looking for.
Showtime.
Developed by Flying Wild Hog and published by Focus Entertainment, Evil West is a single-player action game that blends traditional Western themes with blood-pumping monster-slaying action. Evil West takes place in an alternate version of the American frontier, where vampires and other monstrous creatures threaten to destroy the country. You play as Jesse Rentier, who is a skilled vampire hunter working for a secret government organization called the Rentier Institute. Your mission is to stop these terrifying creatures from taking over the world. The gameplay in Evil West is fast-paced and action-heavy. Think of it as a mix of old-school shooters and modern brawlers. You'll use a combination of guns, melee weapons, and high-tech gadgets to take down your enemies. One of the highlights of the combat is Jesse's mechanical gauntlet, which he uses to punch, grab, and slam enemies with brutal force. The gauntlet adds a satisfying, tactile feel to the combat and makes you feel like a true monster hunter. There's a real sense of power in each fight, especially when you take on large groups of enemies. The story is immersive, the gameplay is challenging but fair, and the world is packed with secrets to discover. Unlike many modern games that focus on multiplayer or open-world exploration, Evil West keeps things tight and focused, delivering a linear but highly polished experience.
None taken.
When you think of Western games, you might picture fast-paced shootouts and quick-draw duels. But with Desperados III, it's all about taking things slow and steady. This tactical stealth game is best played with a meticulous approach, where you carefully plan each move and use your wits more than your guns. The game can be pretty challenging, but that's part of what makes it so rewarding. This prequel to the original game tells the origin story of John Cooper, a man driven by a thirst for revenge. His journey begins in the rugged mountains of Colorado and takes you all the way to the dusty plains of New Mexico. While the plot might follow some familiar Western tropes, it's the bond between the 5 playable characters that really makes the 30-hour campaign shine. There were times when the game got pretty tough, and I found myself getting frustrated. But when I finally overcame those challenges, the sense of accomplishment was immense. The environmental hazards added an extra layer of strategy, and I loved the moments when I could pull off some Agent 47-style underhandedness, making my kills look like accidents. The Wild West setting, combined with the game's strong narrative and memorable characters, makes it a must-play for fans of single-player games. Whether you're a fan of Westerns or just love a good strategy game, Desperados III is sure to impress.
Cutting nerves.
Stranger's Wrath was a fantastic attempt at incorporating first-person combat with a third-person character action-adventure platformer. That's a bit of a mouthful, but it's true, and it stayed fairly niche, even in the grand scheme of things. Set in the strange world of Oddworld, Stranger's Rat follows the journey of a mysterious bounty hunter known as the Stranger. As you can imagine, the gameplay loop is taking up bounties and turning them into local law enforcement, preferably alive, as it nets you more money and gets you closer to your outrageously high medical bill. Players can hoof it and knock out enemies with melee attacks, but that won't work against bosses, and you're only going to make things harder if you don't engage in combat from the first person. Although the first-person mode seems complementary, you actually find yourself running through the game a lot this way. Your moveset stays virtually identical, and the keen eye view is necessary as the levels become more and more complex. The challenge of this game is finding out the best steps to advance to the target boss bounty, and later stages have a lot of paths to let you undermine traps and enemies, or give you a nice vantage point to blow things up. But again, going guns blazing isn't always the best move, as keeping enemies and bosses alive is crucial to saving up for Stranger's operation. In Call of Juarez Gunslinger, you step into the boots of Silas Greaves, a bounty hunter with a reputation for tracking down some of the most famous outlaws of the Wild West. The game takes you back to the late 19th century, a time when the Wild West was at its wildest. Silas shares his incredible adventures in a saloon, recounting his daring encounters with legendary figures like Billy the Kid, Jesse James, and Butch Cassidy. The game uses comic-like cutscenes to advance the story, which helps to keep things moving at a brisk pace. These cutscenes are quick and to the point, allowing you to jump from one exciting stage to the next without missing a beat. One of the standout features of Call of Juarez Gunslinger is exceptional voice acting. Silas Greaves himself is particularly well voiced, bringing a convincing and charismatic presence to the game. The gunplay is smooth and satisfying, and the game's arcade-style approach, driven by an engaging score, makes it a refreshing change from more serious shooters like Call of Duty or Battlefield. Beyond the main story, Call of Juarez Gunslinger offers an arcade mode where you can test your shooting skills in fast-paced challenges. There's also a New Game Plus mode, allowing you to replay the game with all your unlocked skills, making it even more enjoyable the second time around. When talking about the best single-player Western games, we can't ignore Red Dead Revolver. This is where Rockstar Games first stepped into the Wild West genre, laying the groundwork for the legendary Red Dead Redemption series. Released in 2004 for PlayStation 2 and Xbox, Red Dead Revolver might not be as famous as its successors, but it's a game that deserves recognition. The game follows Red Harlow, who is a bounty hunter on a mission to avenge the brutal murder of his parents. As a young boy, Red witnesses his mother and father being killed by outlaws who betray them over gold. He survives, but the tragedy leaves him with a scar, both physical and emotional. Years later, Red grows into a gunslinger, tracking down those responsible and delivering justice the hard way. Unlike the open-world format of Red Dead Redemption, Red Dead Revolver is a more linear, level-based third-person shooter. One of the game's best features is Dead Eye, which lets Red slow down time and mark multiple enemies before unleashing a devastating rapid-fire attack. This mechanic later became a signature feature in Red Dead Redemption. For a game released in 2004, Red Dead Revolver had impressive graphics at the time. The character designs are a bit exaggerated, giving it a unique, almost comic book-like style. While it may look dated compared to modern games, the visuals still hold a certain charm that fits its Western theme.
Use my perks.
Gun was developed by Neversoft, who are most well known for their work on the Tony Hawk's and Guitar Hero series. It was released on November 5, 2005 for the PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and Microsoft Windows. You play as a skilled hunter named Colton White, who has spent his life traveling with his father Ned. But everything changes when an attack on a steamboat reveals secrets about Colton's past. After losing his father in the chaos, Colton sets out on a journey for revenge and to uncover the truth about his family. Besides Villain's story, you can take on bounty hunting missions, play poker, mine for gold, or work as a lawman. These activities add variety and help you earn money to upgrade weapons. Combat is brutal and satisfying, featuring quick-draw mechanics that let you slow down time and take out enemies with precision shots. You can use revolvers, rifles, shotguns, and even bows, each with unique advantages. One of the best parts of Gun is its gritty and realistic violence. Enemies react to where they are shot, and the game doesn't hold back on the blood and chaos of the Old West. It truly captures the rough and lawless nature of the era. Even though Gun didn't become as famous as Red Dead Redemption, it laid the groundwork for future Western games. It was one of the first to truly capture the feel of the Old West in an open-world setting. Many fans still look back on Gun as an underrated classic that deserves more recognition.
Hello, Arthur.
Abigail?
Red Dead Redemption 2 stands shoulder to shoulder with Grand Theft Auto V as one of the greatest games of modern times. Set in 1899, it's a time when American outlaws are becoming an endangered species. Dutch van der Linde and his gang are on the run after a botched heist in the growing town of Blackwater. They've retreated high into the mountains, where an atrocious blizzard is covering their escape. We step into the boots of Arthur Morgan, who is an exceedingly cool and capable outlaw, and settle in for a roughly 60-hour story. The game starts with a self-contained and linear introduction, but it's cleverly designed. It heightens the impact of having the full map opened up to you a few hours later. Being set loose in the true open world after being confined in this intentionally oppressive environment really underscores the incredible feeling of freedom the full map offers. The main story missions are a mix of high-stakes heists, deadly shootouts, desperate rescues, and thrilling chases, along with a lengthy list of other tasks. Many of these missions serve as organic ways to teach us about new side hustles and activities, from selling stolen horses to playing poker or fishing. It all feels great to play, similar in many ways to its immediate predecessor, but injected with a pile of new animations and multiple layers of interactivity. That's it for today's roundup of the best single-player Western games. If you've got a favorite that didn't make the list, drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what Westerns you've been enjoying. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, share it with your fellow gamers, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.